Welcome back, everybody, to an episode of The Smylie Show. Typically, our co-host Charlie Hume brings us into most of these Monday episodes, but today, for those of you that are watching this episode, you can see our man Charlie got the neck brace on, neck surgery on Tuesday. It is finished. My man, how are we doing?
We're honestly better than I could have ever imagined. And I should just stop here and just give a huge shout out to Dr. Dan Rue, the good people at New York Presbyterian Hospital, at Weill Cornell. Thank you, Doc. I mean, I never in my wildest dreams did I imagine a 2-level cervical spine surgery. So I got a fusion at one level and an artificial disc at another level. And I just expected to be knocked out for, I think I was supposed to have 2 weeks off for work. And this recording that we are doing right now was very much in question. But I'm telling you, I came out of anesthesia like an hour and a half after the surgery. And I was like, let's go. Like I got up, was walking around the floor, gave my mom a hug. It's honestly nothing short of amazing. So, I mean, golly, modern medicine, huh? Who would have thought?
I mean, the neck brace looks really good on you. Walk us through what are the pros and cons? Are there any pros to the neck brace, or is it just flat out miserable?
Pros are, we had a terrible head movement issue with my putting stroke that you identified almost immediately upon me sending you videos however many months ago. And that seems to be fixed. I've been rolling a few putts because the doc said you can putt right away. You can chip after 6 weeks and full swings after 3 months. Okay. So obviously, as soon as I got home, started putting, and the head movement the head is very quiet. So this is a good thing. This is a definite pro. The cons are, here's the thing with the surgery, which is just, this stat blows my mind. It's only 25% of the people who are supposed to wear this hard brace actually wear this hard brace. 75% of them say, just not doing it. And those people take sometimes 4 times as long to heal and recover as the people who do wear the neck brace. So I am going to I told the surgeon before he operated on me, I was like, I'm going to be the best neck brace wearer that you've ever had in your entire life. And I intend to fulfill that promise. But it is highly uncomfortable, highly uncomfortable. It's sweaty. It's hot. I'm having a chafing issue. Here's another fun fact about cervical spine surgeries is that the more cardio you do, the faster it heals. So I've just been on the Peloton, just churning out my workouts with Olivia every day. Sure. And that's a very uncomfortable situation. Gets really sweaty and hot. And then you have to take it off to shower, but you have to keep your head very still. So like that whole, however long that process is, not the comfiest thing that you'll ever do, but I'm going to do it in the sake of healing for 6 weeks and in the sake of content.
This is fantastic content. There's no doubt about that. And I see you're wearing a collared shirt. I mean, are you just buying all the low 4-button shirts that extend down to basically your belly button? Because that's the look looks like you're going for.
It's absolute. Thank you for noticing. Because it is
V-neck
very much
season.
It's big time V-neck season. It's very much a cultivated look. I think I'm a big hoodie guy, and so I had like an emergency moment of panic before I went to New York for the surgery. I was like, oh my gosh, like all of my hoodies are tight hoodies, except for one my dad got me at National Golf Links of America. It's like a quarter zip hoodie. So that was my trusty hoodie that I took for good luck up for surgery. So that one I'm going to be wearing quite a bit. But I definitely now I can justify my library of polos that I've accumulated over all these years. Much to my wife's chagrin, like, why did you need another polo from this place? Well, guess what? Because all I'm going to be wearing is going to be polos for 6 weeks. So aren't you glad I got them out?
I do not need you to overstretch some of your best polos. Let's not lose sight of our best shirts in our closet and make sure that we do not stretch the collar and stretch like kind of the bottom. We do not need to be doing anything like that. So let's be careful at that.
Thank you for looking out for me, Smylie. I have some concerns in that department. As you can see, this is a very nice Grayson shawl collar polo here from Diamond Creek of all places. So the shawl collar loves the Velcro part of this brace. It loves it a little bit too much. So trying to kind of massage the collar situation. What fabric I'm wearing is definitely a consideration. But this was a church polo. This was like a nice polo that I wore today to church, and I decided to keep rolling with it. Most of the polos that I'll be wearing,
I bet you got some looks at church today.
Yes. They were like, prayers were answered, huh? I was like, yeah, great job, team. Everybody here did great. But yeah, most of the time they're pretty ratty polos. So you'll definitely see a few of those pop up on the show because we don't want to ruin these polos.
We're gonna see you 6 weeks from now. We're just gonna be out of polos and you're just gonna be shirtless and a neck brace doing the pod. And that's honestly that's the content that we really need is just a shirtless Charlie with a neck brace on which is, I'm not sure if you're a chest hair guy, but that would be great content.
I don't know if the chafing was a giveaway, but
wait, how do you pronounce? Are you saying chafing?
Chafing.
Chafing.
Is it chafing or chafing? Chafing?
It's always been chafing.
Is it chafing?
It's not chafing.
Is this a Hume Holmes situation we're having here?
You keep saying I hear an SH and I'm pretty sure it's a CH.
Are you saying Pam or Pan? Yeah, whatever the pronunciation of that word is. I am a chest hair guy. Unfortunately, I think that's causing some of the issues I'm having in the chafe department here. But I can pledge to you at least one shirtless pod before all is said and done with this brace. Maybe the last one is like a send off. We'll just do like 15 minutes of shirtless content on YouTube.
Are you able to go to Google and aren't they able to pronounce a word? Like, can you type in chafing? Can we play that out loud? Does that?
Yeah.
We able to do that? Let's see what the robot on the internet says.
Yeah, let's see. I just want
to be on the right side of history here.
I think you're right. I have a bad habit of mispronouncing words that I should pronounce correctly. You're correct. Chafing. I just heard chafing. Yeah, chafing.
Okay.
I'm glad we corrected this live. Maybe I'll insert this sound to the podcast in the back end. But yes, mark one down for Smiley's grammar and minus points for me. But cut me a little bit of slack here.
Yeah, I'm slack given. Right? Slack given. The guys on probably on painkillers, and man is just literally floating. You just have a floating head, a floating mind, and
I mean, I've been floating ever since my North Carolina Tar Heels just really got the job done against the Miami Hurricanes and found ourselves in the top 10 of the AP poll. So
about time, if you're an undefeated team and you can't even slide in the top 10, it's about that time, right?
Yeah. Come on, show us some respect here, guys.
I like y'all's defense, I will say. Yeah, the defense seems to be kind of holding you. Like it seems to be the thing that's gotten better this year for y'all.
Yes, better in the sense that it could not possibly have gone any worse last year than it did. So it is definitely better in that respect. But yeah, man. I mean, I'll say this. I get a sick pleasure out of beating the Miami Hurricanes, and it's now 5 straight wins in a row.
Oh, there you go.
And we were doing the U down thing for a while. So anyone watching on YouTube, let's all enjoy this together. And also with this new pod play thing, the ACC, I don't know when the next time it is we're going to play them. So we get to kind of savor this one for an extra long time. But
what is the ACC thing? Is it no more divisions in there as well?
They've gone away from divisions because I guess this provides the best 2 records in the conference championship game. So it gives you a better chance.
Same deal.
I think almost every conference except maybe the Big Ten has gone away from that. So how about on the topic of the SEC? How about you taking Anna Carter to her very first game, Baton Rouge, and a win for the Bayou Bengals? Let's go, man.
We are currently 1-0 in the house divided game. LSU currently leading those standings, but against Auburn would be considered my number 2 team if I had to cheer for another team, just because you know how that goes in the house. So no ill will against the Auburn Tigers, but boy were they. They just aren't that good. They are just really not a good football team. They are a ways away, but that's what happens when you have to take over. It's kind of like similar with Edo and what he left LSU with Brian Harmon. God, talking too much golf. Brian Harsin, what he left that Auburn program in. So it's going to take a minute or two for Hugh to get that place turned around. But we're going to go to Auburn Ole Miss this weekend, where I will be a big Auburn fan, needing an Ole Miss loss as LSU hopes to win out to find our way to the SEC championship game. So, but overall, great weekend and great to see a lot of fun people. It was fun.
I saw you and Sam Burns throwing up the. Am I doing this right? The LSU
L. The L. It was
that.
Good to see Sam. Him and I were just kind of jonesing, man. We were just so excited to be back to Baton Rouge, and overall great weekend. Saw a lot of people I hadn't seen in forever. Baton Rouge was lit. Had a great time. My brain cell count is lower than what I arrived with, but had great times. So really the guys I sat with at the game, shout out to Brandon Landry at Walk-Ons and Todd Grays over at Raising Cane's. We sat in their box, and they had Big Cat. So saw Dan, talk to him about their golf content. We thought that was interesting, and talked to Dave Portnoy for a minute, and yeah, it was fun, man. Overall great experience. Tiger Stadium's the best.
Well, here's a fun little segue then, because this is something I had at the very end of the rundown, but I think this fits perfectly right here. And you also replied to this on Twitter, and we're talking golf content. So this is within the zeitgeist. That's probably another word I'm not pronouncing correctly, but I don't really care. Max Homa tweeted this earlier. Just one time I'd like to go on a boys trip where we catch up on sleep and relax as much as possible instead of pushing our bodies to the absolute limit. Where did you land on the, I know this wasn't a boys trip. Obviously, this is a family trip. But where do we land on that scale this week in Baton Rouge?
It was kind of a humbling experience, with pushing a stroller with my child around Baton Rouge, where for the longest time I needed somebody to push me around in a stroller to babysit me. So I would say that was the biggest, whoa, man, I have really, really grown up since the last time I've been here for a football game, which was back in 2019 for the LSU Auburn game. So it's been 4 years, and yeah, it's crazy how fast life comes at you fast, man. And pushing a baby down our main drag is right next to the stadium. It was pretty cool, but also just woo, man, this is it's a little different.
When you have the baby reaching for the alcoholic drink that you have in your hand while you're carrying, it's just a little bit of a wow. I'm really never have the two different pathways present themselves more clearly right in front of me, and it's definitely, I think to your point, it's definitely a little bit of look at me, look at how far I've made it, but it also you're a little bit wistful for the days of old when maybe you were the one being pushed in a stroller through the streets of Baton Rouge.
I definitely needed
those days are fun too.
I definitely needed a shot collar on me or something, or just an air tag, in my pants or something to keep track. Yeah. It was fun, man. We had a good time.
I love it. Well, I mean, and listen, we can, not to cut this off early, we can definitely get back to the college football and everything else that comes with it at the end of this episode. But shall we get to the golf? Because
yes, please.
Because I mean, listen, this was fifth major week.
This was
Shriners Children's Open week, and what a fitting champion of such a prestigious event to have Tom Kim go back to back. A couple of really good stats, which almost always come to us courtesy of Justin Ray Golf. But Tom Kim, I'd say it this way: the youngest to successfully defend a PGA Tour recognized title since 1900. The youngest is John McDermott, the famous 1912 U.S. Open that I'm sure we all remember. 20 years, 11 months, and 21 days. And then the next youngest, old, man. Tom Kim, 21 years, 3 months, and 24 days. And he is the youngest three-time winner on the PGA Tour since Tiger Woods. So before we get into Tom's performance this weekend, or really on Sunday, I thought it was pretty interesting looking at the leaderboard from this Shriners and comparing it to the leaderboard of the Shriners that you won. And how closely bunched it was. I mean, you were at 16 and a bunch of guys at 15. And as we were kind of coming down the stretch, I know Tom pulled away and ended up winning by a shot towards the end. But with this course, where it is gettable, we saw a lot of guys go low on Sunday. What's it kind of like riding that, that nervy sort of run down the stretch at TPC Summer and what number do I need to post to win this freaking tournament?
Well, that golf course definitely has some scoreable holes on that back nine. I think the stretch from 13 to 16 is just, I mean, you gotta birdie every single hole, or you almost feel like you're losing ground. But the year that I won, the event was late October near Halloween, and maybe even into early November. So it was later in the year. So Vegas typically would be very cool in the mornings, even potential for some frost delays in the morning. That's how cool it would get. And it would make the golf course play firmer. The ball wasn't traveling quite as far, but as the later in the day it would go, you started to see it, but the temperature drops were pretty insane back if we played it, a couple of weeks later. But this week they actually had cooler temperatures earlier in the week, which is why you see all the scores kind of finish around that 20 number, where I think last year Cantlay and Tom Kim finished closer to 24, 5, 6. I think they were going that low. You can double check me on that, but I think they were definitely taking it deep. But yeah, I mean, insane, man. Tom Kim is on on quite a run of good play. He kind of had that lull in the middle of the summer. We talked to Tom on the podcast about one. It's a great listen. And I think my takeaway from just when we talked to him earlier in the year was how much he has learned about himself, how much he's learned about playing a full schedule on the PGA Tour. I think being close to some of those top players like Scotty Scheffler, Sam Burns, all these guys that he rooms with week in, week out. I think that's helped him kind of progress this year. And I would call it his rookie year when he played actually a full season. Last year was kind of not that. He didn't really get that full schedule like everybody else would. And still, I mean, this guy's 16th in the world, hasn't been updated yet. I imagine he'll make another jump up to probably close to 10 or 12. So we're talking about a guy who, going into last year, we're like, who's going to make that big jump next year? And it was Victor Hovland this year. Is next year going to be Tom Kim's year where he makes that jump into somewhere around the top 5 in the world, or, knocking down the door of a guy like Victor Hovland? He's got all the capabilities. He's a very, very talented player, always able to find his golf ball. And what I noticed about this week, looking at the stats, I didn't get a chance to watch a whole lot of it being in Baton Rouge this weekend. But one of the things I talked to Joe Scobern about, his caddy, was throughout the year, the putter has been something that had been a bit of an issue. And we talked to Tom about that on the podcast earlier this year, saying that, everybody saw me at the President's Cup making every single big putt, but really that has been my weakness in my game. And I see that this week. I'm looking at his strokes gained putting. He gained plus 1.45, which was 4th best in the field. So a guy that is already a great ball striker, and really a weakness for him, which I don't consider a weakness, just hadn't had a great statistical putting year, has finished his 4th in putting. I mean, that for Tom, that's going to be enough to get a dub.
Yeah, without a doubt. And I think it's interesting that you reference, of course, he is a friend of the pod, and he did go into full depth in the podcast episode, that the conversation you had with him, I guess, a couple of months ago now, that's worth going back and listening to again to kind of hear him talk about some of these things. But he referenced, in some degree of detail, and in his winner's interview with George Savarickas, that sort of dip in form and what that did to his mentality, and just, feeling like looking for some form of validation, for all the work that he'd put in, and, chasing distance a little bit this year too. Mm-hmm. So this is huge from that perspective, I feel like. And you kind of, said it there, but I mean, do you think, early in the year, where do you think we could see Tom, kind of start finding a groove and making an impact? Because it felt like for Vic, this, the following year, and Vic, another one with Vic is he traditionally played well at the Hero World Challenge event, right? And so I'm wondering if that's a thing where if Tom goes there and plays well in that limited field, that kind of kickstart him going into the next year as well. If that could be another sort of fall or winter jump starter for him.
I think what's surprising when you look at Tom Kim's record from last year, or just looking at his results, let's look at his major championship results. So the Masters finishes T16. So that's a very strong week. The PGA Championship, the one where he got stuck in the mud, missed the cut there, but we're gonna go ahead and give him a pass there, because the guy laid it out all on the line. And really, that was a kind of a weird week in Rochester, Thursday, Friday. How cool it was, you know what I'm talking about? Just very difficult to be kind of in a wrong wave, or just playing in very cool temperatures, just being a little off in a very difficult golf course can set you back. So we'll give him a pass there. US Open T8, and then the Open Championship T2. So we had a T16, a T8, and a T2. So sneaky, his major record was really solid last year.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's and I think this is something you were saying in relation to Max Homa in a different sort of way, where Max kind of struggled in his first few majors to start the season, kind of came on strong at the end of the season,
Right.
started showing some form. And so I think for Tom, as he's looking back and is trying to find some high points in a season where maybe he was expecting to win more, okay, you have those high watermarks at the majors, but you also now have a win in the fall to kind of carry you into that next year and boost the confidence a little bit. So without a doubt, and I think, and looking at the week in its totality for the Shriners, I mean, they got to feel like this was a success end to end, because you have a winner that's a rising star in the game, that's 21 years old, that people are excited about. And the beginning of week with Lexi Thompson almost making the cut. And I know this was a decision that, a lot of people criticized. I think Peter Malnati, he did walk it back, but initially said, hey, maybe this was a gimmick. And in a lot of ways, it seemed to kind of pay off. I have a couple of stats for you. Another one from Justin Ray Golf, of course. There have been 3 rounds in the 60s by women all time on the PGA Tour. 2 of them, Michelle Wee West, the Sony Open in 04 and 06. She shot 68s both of those years. And then Lexi this year, her second round of the Shriners, shot a 2 under 69. And it looked like she was very close to the cut line, ended up missing by 3, but at the time was either 1 or 2 off the cut line, and had an eagle chip at the ninth to give her a chance to get right on that cut line. And I thought another interesting tweet from Michael Kim, who was playing in this event, said, not sure it's showing on TV, but Lexi has the biggest crowd this week at a PGA Tour tournament. What a win for Shriners. You'll probably see more PGA Tour tournament invites to Lexi and other female golfers. What were your thoughts heading into the week and coming out of at least Thursday, Friday for Lexi at the Shriners?
I mean, just really, Lexi's awesome. She is so talented, and it's not surprising at all to me because I've played with her multiple times. I know how good she is. I know if we go play the same tees, even when I was playing well, she could beat me. Like, that's 100% she can beat me because she has length. Let's look at her driving distance stats this week. 301 yards average. Come on, dude. Like, that's awesome. Like, 301 yards. That was 120th. In the field. So she's out driving. And I know some of these holes it is some placement stuff where, you're not hitting driver every single hole, but still that's super impressive. And I'm just going to continue to look at her stats. Great week with a putter, 44th approach to the green. I know, I think Thursday wasn't her best stats, but Friday, some of her stats on Friday, like she was gaining shots with her irons that day. Definitely chipping and around the green's always been a weakness for her. And we've seen that. We saw it at the Solheim Cup. We've seen it at major championships with her down the stretch, not being able to close things out. But we know how good she is tee to green, and she's tough. She's tough and really cool to see. And I know my comments before the week were I wouldn't call it gimmicky either. It's more about the PGA Tour this fall. It's like, what is this? What is the identity of the fall? Is it giving guys opportunities to continue to get their card, or are we, is it still and sponsors can always unrestricted can invite whoever they want to, but as a player who's trying to keep their job, to me, it's like, wait, why didn't I get a spot if I'm 175 in the FedEx Cup and I'm fighting for my life to provide for my family? Why are we letting a female play? And so I see two sides of this, but I think it's so great for the Thursday, Friday boost for the coverage that everybody on golf Twitter's like, what? How was Lexi playing? And I was checking her like every other minute because I wanted her to do so well. I think it was so great for the tournament, but at the same time, it's not a Lexi thing. It's more of a PGA Tour fall thing. It's like, hey, what is this whole fall series? Because, in the past it used to be, this would have been a perfect event, with these guys that it's so early in the season. The FedEx Cup hasn't really even gotten started. The points everybody's starting at 0. So what a great time to have a female come and play an event where, guys' jobs aren't on the line, but you can make the argument on the other side of it. It's like, hey, you've had, this entire year to accumulate points. And if you're not getting into this event at this point, you probably have played bad enough to where you probably didn't deserve to get a spot. So I see both sides of it. Hopefully that came off the right way. But really cool to see from Lexi.
Yeah, I mean, I think in terms of trying to assess this, I think that it's funny how this operates on a lot of different levels. Like, I think the one that is the most interesting to unpack is where you started kind of with the sponsor exemptions. And, we're at a point in the game right now where money makes this whole thing go around, like it or not. Like, it's becoming more and more important, the people who fund these purses, because there's a threat of LIV, there's an ongoing negotiation, which we'll get into some new developments later in the podcast. But where are we going to align with Saudi Arabia and the PIF and fund it this way, or are there other interests that can fund this thing? So it's hard to say, hey, we don't want to let the sponsors do what they want to do, but also give us all your money. So that one is an interesting one to me. And in my opinion, like, I don't find this sponsor exemption any more gimmicky than inviting Michael Block to play in these events. Like, I really don't. I mean, I hate to say it, but I mean, I think it's like they're both. We know what we're doing there. We're trying to get people, trying to get butts in seats, right? Honestly, I came into the week, and I love how I had to kind of eat my own words on this too. Is that my critique was not at all of an exemption for a woman. I think it's amazing. I think it creates interest. It also drives participation among young girls who are looking up to her. My critique would have been the golfing form that Lexi was in. Like, if you look at the landscape of women playing golf,
that was a big conversation.
I love watching Lynn Grant play. Lynn Grant just played great at the Solheim Cup, where Team Europe retained their title. Lynn Grant has won a mixed event, the Scandinavian mixed event before, playing against men. So for me, it's like, if you want to pick a woman to play an event with men and have a chance to compete and make a cut and potentially win, let's go with someone who's showing us a little bit more recently that you can do that. But that's why golf is such a hilarious and beautiful game, is Lexi can come in without a ton of form and shut us all up by going out and doing what she did. And kind of to your point on the driving deal, is that, I mean, for a woman to come to a PGA Tour event, average 300 yards off the tee, hit the longest drive of 316 yards, even though that statistically ranks lower than other men in the field, that's highly impressive. The stat that I did find extremely impressive, and this comes from Beth Ann Nichols, is she ranked T15 in driving accuracy, 71.43% of fairways hit. And so it's like, that shows you right there in the game of golf, like, if you can hit the ball straight, I mean, yeah, you got to hit it long depending on course setup. But you can hit the ball straight and give yourself a chance to score. It doesn't matter, how long or short you are. You should have a chance to score and make a PGA Tour cut. And that's what Lexi went out and did. And that's why it's like, great, I was wrong. Thanks for proving me wrong.
Yeah, you definitely. It's Lexi has distance, and I think you have to have that to be able to make a cut on the PGA Tour. If it is, if we have more females that do have the opportunity to get to play. And that golf ball does tend to go it rolls out and at TPC Summer, which is definitely an added benefit. But I want to see more of it. I think it's great. Yeah. I think it's I think a lot of people have been shouting from the rooftops that we need a mixed team event in some form or fashion. I know we're getting that soon, but is it going to be a large enough field to where you really get a big enough sample size of enough of the females playing and enough of the males playing? So, well, I think it's the Franklin Templeton. Is that what it's called? Or is it the Grant Thornton?
It's the Grant Thornton is the team event.
Okay.
That essentially, as far as I understand it, is like the Zurich Classic, but it's mixed pairs.
Okay, cool.
So, I think that's in December. And I am very much looking forward to seeing how how that will go. DJ Pyhowski of No Laying Up suggested, and I guess this is an ongoing suggestion he's made, to make the President's Cup a mixed team event that's put on jointly by the PGA Tour and the LPGA on the heels of Lexi performing. And any thought? And like, do you like that? Does that kind of get you going at all?
Not really. It doesn't. I mean, I can see a world in which that would be awesome. I don't know. I really like the way it's set up now with the President's Cup, just because I loved how competitive it actually was last year. It's starting to feel like there's this youth movement, especially in the Korean players and Aussie players. I mean, there's going to be some studs coming up from this international team side, and we'll see if a guy like Cam Smith will be able to still play President's Cups, or how that's going to continue to go. But I'm not ruling out that an international team to be able to get the job done up in Canada. It'd be crazy if U.S. lost 2 in a row, President's Cup and a Ryder Cup. So that'll be interesting.
Yeah. I mean, look no further than the top of this weekend's leaderboard where you had a Korean and a Canadian in the top 2 spots. I mean, there definitely is talent there. And yeah, if you get back some of those guys that went to LIV, namely Cam Smith, yeah, that equation changes quite a bit in terms of making it a more competitive event. So
I guess just to follow, like,
sure.
Where would be the best place to have
a mixed team event?
Something like the Olympics. Like the Olympics would be an amazing place for that to be a thing, because now you have like John Rahm playing with the best Spaniard. Like it would be really cool to have that mix of like Nelly Korda playing with Scotty Scheffler. I think that in a match play format would be fantastic, because you get all the emotion from the players, and gosh, we need more match play. Match play is the best. So that's a conversation for another day.
That's a good suggestion. No, that really is, because I think the Olympics, it's like,
what an airball.
I was looking at the calendar for next year, and I just got to the Olympics and I kind of just had to like laugh. I'm like, what to make of this? Like Xander Schauffele is the reigning champion, but like, I remember that was at a time where he hadn't won on tour in a while. And even still, I guess he'd won like a team event after that. Like, where do we slot this in on the list of Xander's greatest? Like, I'm not quite sure. So
I forgot he won, to be honest, until you just said it. So,
so that tells you right there what we should be doing with mixed competitions at the Olympics. How about that man, Ludvig Aberg? The man just does not stop. How about this? Since the RBC Canadian Open, the list of players on tour who have shot 65 or lower the most times: Victor Hovland with 8, and then there are 3 tied with 7: Rory, Ludvig, and Lucas Glover.
Wow.
After he shot a 62 on Sunday, which ended up got him to 16 under and a tie for 13th place. But when he posted, he was right there in the mix. Like he had a chance. I think the leaders were at 17 or 18, and he had a real shot at maybe making it into a playoff. And then Tom Kim, of course, pulled away later in the day. But just continuing to revisit Ludvig, and I think specifically for him, his status, right? Because he, of course, locked up some status going into the next PGA Tour season through finishing number 1 on the PGA Tour Year program. But now I think he's projected as 95th he is on this list. So that significantly improves his category next year, not subject to reshuffle, stuff like that. I mean, how impressed are you? Do you continue to be with Ludvig as he keeps playing more and more high profile events and getting a chance to kind of play professionally?
Well, I mean, those stats say it. I mean, guys that are shooting mid 60s more often than not, that's probably a good sign.
It's not a bad sign.
And I tell you what, I saw him at the Ryder Cup, saw him in Jackson, did not see him at the Shriners, but kid's got game. I love him. I think he's going to be inside the top 10 in the world by this time next year. I think it could be that quick. He's sitting currently at 59th in the world. So I think countdown right now is till the end of the year. Can Ludvig play his way into the top 50 in the world and get a Masters invite? So that is definitely something we're going to be looking at. That typically ends at the end of the calendar year. So he's 59th now. He finished 13th this week? Is that what you said at the Shriners?
Yes, T13. Yeah.
He's got a very low divisor. So that'll continue to he'll move up quicker, because low divisors are always better with your good finishes to move up faster. So currently at 59th, I mean, a couple good, maybe 1 or 2 more good weeks, he's going to be inside the top 50 and playing in the first major of the year. So that is definitely who's to say that he wouldn't find his way in early part of next year anyways, but it would be nice to get Ludvig locked up so we don't have to be watching for it.
Yeah, well, and what'll be really interesting too is to see how early he can get into one of the categories that gets him into some of these signature events. Because I think it's top 25
He's
world
get
ranking,
top 30 in the world,
or top 30 world ranking. That's right.
And sponsors invites too. So
that's right. That might be his most likely entry point, is a sponsor invite, depending on who
he'll find his way in there.
Yeah. But I mean, obviously he cannot play in Century. And so then I think the next one is the AT&T Pro-Am and the Genesis. And just something tells me whether it's through the next 5 category or,
that's
or
a good
even,
point. Yeah.
Yeah. And depending on how many other fall events he plays, I mean, he's shooting up this list right now. I know he's got to get to 60 to make it into the next 10. But I mean, there are a lot of, he's attacking this thing from a lot of different angles. He might find his way in.
He's playing Zozo, I'm pretty certain as well. So there's another week where it's a better field, another good finish there. And he may lock up top 50. And then, if he wins something like that, he's going to be approaching top 30 in the world. So I fully expect him to be playing all the big events next year.
Yeah. Well, that's if he does make it to top 10, I mean, that'll be truly an amazing rise. And what a cool thing to continue having guys like that are just, it's like seeing potential, a guy like Victor Hovland, and then, it happens for him. And so I wonder if kind of in the mold of Victor or even kind of Tom Kim, like we just talked about, when his slowdown or road bump's going to come, first of all, if he's going to have one, and if he does,
he's played a lot of golf.
What that looks like. Maybe just a burnout thing.
He's played a lot of golf. I'm just sitting here looking at this. He plays all 4 rounds. He never misses a cut. Oh my gosh. He's made his last 15 or so cuts besides the Scottish Open where he missed a cut. Man, he must have had a bad meal or something in Scotland, because I don't know what happened, because he's made every other cut.
It's amazing, but obviously want to keep an eye on. But I'll be curious to see, if and when that happens, how he bounces back from it. We were talking off air a little bit. The guy that posted 18 under, Eric Cole, early in the day, shot 62. A guy that kind of came on a lot of people's radar at what I think I now should be calling the Classic in the Palm Beaches as I looked at the 2024 schedule for this next season.
Boy, does that have a ring to it.
Formerly the Honda Classic. Obviously went to that playoff with Chris Kirk and lost. But, for a lot of people showed up and really made a strong effort there. And they continued to play well the rest of the year. So let's talk a little bit about Eric and this Rookie of the Year race and your thoughts on where he stands in that.
Oh, it's locked up. I mean, it's been locked up. And really, the competition for this one, it's kind of been done. I think the other guys that he was competing with, Taylor Montgomery got off to a really hot start. Has kind of slowed down as the year has gone on. And Eric Cole has just been a make cut top 25 machine. Hasn't gotten that win yet, but man, he's just rock solid and probably the oldest Rookie of the Year by 10 to 15 years almost. I mean, that seems fair to say. What is he, early 40s? Is that right? Am I way off?
No, I think he's like 34.
What? I thought he was older than that. I don't know why. I'm losing my mind. Like I said, I have less brain cells than I came to Baton Rouge with, so bear with me on my age.
He looks like he's way younger than that, but he's 35. He's about
I'm not crazy off.
Yeah, he's about, golly, unfortunately, just 5 months older than I am. So that says.
I wonder what the oldest Rookie of the Year. Surely there's a stat out there we could find.
Surely there's a stat that I can Google while you continue to talk about Eric Cole.
Yeah. He almost won it. So he almost won at Honda, like you were talking about, and yeah, man, he's.
There was a 47-year-old, Alan Doyle. There are two 47-year-olds. Alan Doyle was one of them, and Jim Rutledge. Jim Rutledge in 2007 was 47 years. Oh, no. I'm sorry.
You're looking at the Champions Tour or something?
No, these are the two oldest rookies ever, not rookies of the year.
I'm like, what?
That's a key part of the search term that Google did not pick up on. So we'll never know. If you're listening now and you know the answer to that question, tweet us in, because if not, we're just going to take Eric Cole's answer and we're not going to look into it too much further than that.
We'll figure it out. What else we got from this week? I mean,
how about our boy Min Woo, friend of the pod?
There you go, Min Woo.
I mean,
so he won on the Asian Tour. He shot like a million under, I think.
He was 30 under. He shot.
Sure.
That usually gets it done.
It's a 3-day tournament too, isn't it?
No, 4-day tournament. How about this?
Okay.
62,
some of those Asian Tour events are 3-day events.
65, 63. Is that any good? All four rounds.
All right, say it again.
62, 64, 65, 63.
How many did he win by?
Only 2, actually.
Oh my God. That was an absolute track meet.
Poom Soxensen. I undoubtedly said that name wrong. Finished 28 under. He shot 67, 62, 64, 63, but they kind of boat raced the rest of the field.
Where was the event?
Macau Golf and Country Club.
Okay.
So I feel like I vaguely know where Macau is, but I couldn't. If I spun a globe around, I'd be hard pressed to find it. I'd be hard pressed to find it. I'm doing a lot of Googling on today's show, which could
let's
be
look at Min Woo. Like, so why is he playing that week? So let's figure out why. Is this a world ranking thing that he's chasing right now? Is he?
See, this is for the life of me, I cannot figure out what Min Woo is trying to do this fall, because we do know he told us on this show that he's playing the Zozo this next week, right? And the math we were trying to do to figure out is, similar to what we're doing with Ludvig and figuring out what category he's going to end up in is, does it make more sense for him to pursue the DP World Tour route and try to lock up one of those 10 cards that you get from finishing top 10 in the DP World standings, removing guys that already have their tour card like Rory McIlroy, like Jon Rahm? Did it make more sense to do that, knowing that status isn't as good as top 125 on tour status, and he earned his special temporary membership earlier in the year, and I believe entering the fall he was around 107 on the list in terms of points. So it felt like if his goal was to gain the best PGA Tour status possible, it made the most sense for him to play a bunch of PGA Tour fall events. But then, of course, he went off and was playing, other DP World Tour events. So then it seemed like that was going to be the route he was going to pursue. But this is obviously a big detour in a different direction. And it could just be a one-off, thing this week, and, playing in a part of the world that, has some sort of, meaning to him. But it is strange to me in terms of trying to figure out what he's trying to do here. Why he'd play in this event, but it can't hurt to win it.
I think there's only 2 explanations you can come up with. And the first being that he got paid to go play the event. So that's the first thing, an appearance fee to play, which happens a lot of times this time of the year. Some of these events will dish out some cash to get some big names to show up for some of their events. Maybe that's the reason. The second reason I can think of is his world ranking number is 46. And there used to be plenty of guys that used to do this that were around that 50 number to make sure that they were in the top 50 to get into the Masters, that they would play in very small events. Like Lee Westwood used to do this. Like he was the one that figured out the formula for the OWGR to make sure that he stayed inside the top 50. So he would go play in Fiji at a very small event, he know he would finish in the top whatever. And he would finish second, or he'd win, or whatever would happen. And because he would show up, it would bump the value of whatever that event typically would be. So they would get more world ranking points. And so if he would win, he would be able to basically just ease his way into stay in the top 50, earn world ranking points, and would guarantee himself playing against a weak field, knowing that if I play the worst I'll finish is, like 10th if I played bad, but if I play well, I'll win. I'm not sure if that's what Min Woo did this week. He's 46th. I don't think he would slide out of 50. I guess you could, but maybe that was a reason. Maybe the last reason is he wanted to play the Asian Tour because he's trying to earn merit into the LIV Golf Tour. But let's just not act like that's a thing. But apparently,
let's speculate.
We're not a speculation pod, but we'll just throw that one out there as a Hail Mary potential. But I highly doubt it.
Yeah, no, it's that's really interesting on kind of gaming the math a little bit. Like it's in the day and age when all these guys have, they have their Eduardo Molinari, where they have their stats guy to compute all their shots. And, in the era of decade golf of, calculating different shot values, it's like I feel like it'd make a lot of sense to have an OWGR guy on my payroll, even if in a part-time capacity of like, help me calculate how I can game this thing to make sure I make it into the Masters and any other big events. But no, I mean, either way, obviously win helps that number, and he's going to be in that Zozo field this next week. So not sure what the game there is, but the game is a good one if you're winning and shooting 30 under. So I'm glad you mentioned LIV, because on the topic of that and the PIF, I'm wondering if you saw this report within this last week, ESPN's report regarding the current state of the deal negotiations with the PIF. Did you see this? Do you want me to kind of go over this for you?
Yeah, you're more than welcome to. Remember, I went to Baton Rouge this weekend, and I can't.
That's great.
if it's highly complicated, and I have to talk in depth about this framework agreement. I'll say, can we push it to next week, because I don't think I'm ready to go full legal mode right now.
I think I saw this headline in the depths of post-surgery painkiller, and I was like, yeah, let's just put a bookmark on that one. We'll come back to it later. And here we are. We're later, and we're coming back to it. I think it's interesting that it's the negotiation is ongoing, but the proposed deal is, and this is quoting from the ESPN report, far from getting done for a variety of reasons, including PIF officials wanting more control of the new for-profit enterprise.
Wow. That is
and sources said the Saudis are also digging in their heels on incorporating team golf into the sport's future global ecosystem. All that's happening against the backdrop of there were apparently, and when this was suggested in the Senate hearing, I kind of laughed at it, because I'm like, who's going to come up with enough money to compete with the PIF in terms of total wealth? They're just, that doesn't exist. But apparently there are some bidders, and even I think Endeavor, which owns WME or something like that. Like there was at least initially considering bidding on some form of equity in the LIV Tour, and maybe now is repositioning themselves to be a funder of this new, whatever this new entity is. And I don't know. So like, as I'm reading this, I'm realizing like how out of my depth I am. I just think it's interesting that we're looking at other sources of funding for whatever this new PGA Tour looks like, and what that communicates about the viability of the deal with the PIF. Because I think we said, when we've discussed this in past iterations of this podcast, every time we talk about it, we're like, we have no clue what's going to happen, and we have no clue when it's going to happen. And right now, the when is a huge, huge question mark for me. Like, I don't know how this thing gets brokered if those are the things that are the holdups in the deal negotiation.
Well, I think just to summarize where we're at right now in October, and this goes all the way back to Canada when this whole thing broke and we didn't know what it's going to look like, all the speculation, and we didn't really know what we didn't know. But now we've kind of figured out, all right, this framework might not go through. We were kind of on top of that right from the get-go, having the antitrust lawyer come on. We're like, I don't know if any of this stuff's actually going to go through. And then the players, you're like, you know what? We didn't really sign up for this either. Like, this isn't how we didn't want to be a part of this. So knowing those two things and just a full Spark Notes version of where we are at in October, I would say right now, this framework agreement with the PIF is a backup plan at this point. I don't think it's the plan. I think this is plan number B. I think plan A is some form of equity, private equity. That seems to be what they would rather do. And I think that's, to me, what's being either negotiated or talked about. I don't know when that'll be settled in on. It doesn't seem like this is something that's going to be imminent to where it's going to happen very quick. I do think by the end of the year we may hear something, but as we stand right now, if you're listening and you're wondering what's going on, I think it's trying to figure out who's going to be the backer in all this, and I think they're looking for other options because right now I don't think they wanted to be partners with the PIF. I think, or at least right now they don't. So we'll see.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing about this entire story, or these various different negotiations, seems to be the various levers that can be pulled and what effect they have when pulled, right? So the the thing that was really bad for the PGA Tour mainly was the drain on the reserve funds they had and continuing to litigate with LIV Golf and by an extension of LIV Golf, the PIF, right? So the lever they pulled was, let's negotiate, let's put a framework deal in place and let's put a stop on all that litigation, so we no longer have to spend money on that. But the resulting lever that got pushed was, well, now there's a Department of Justice investigation into this for antitrust concerns, and so now you have to deal with that thing, right? And also there are humanitarian concerns as well that are a part of this, Senate hearing, this whole DOJ deal, right? And so the other kind of lever that we're looking at is, okay, so if you don't get a deal done, right, and now you've removed the moral barrier to leaving the PGA Tour to go to LIV, because all the stuff we said before is no longer true, and now we're willing to do business with these guys, then what is the barrier to going to LIV Golf? It's future playing opportunities, right? I mean, the money there is going to be better, right? But I think another key piece of this whole thing is the OWGR points in the last week getting denied for the LIV Tour and all those players. We heard them kind of push back in a major way. So I think it's really interesting. It's like if there is a way to pursue, largely American funding or just funding that doesn't come with antitrust concerns or humanitarian concerns, and that shuts off the lever of the Department of Justice investigation, the Senate investigation. And then the last thing you're left with is, all right, for the guys, that are currently on the PGA Tour that are big names, here's the deal. You can go and you can take a big paycheck, but you're probably not going to get OWGR points for the foreseeable future, and you're going to have to find a way to it's a lot harder to get into the majors. That's your proposition. Pick one of those two things. That's an interesting world, and I think that's one that the PGA Tour can ultimately win, I think.
Yeah,
I mean, I think some guys will go, but I mean, I think that's a winnable proposition.
I mean, just in all of this, all the things you just said, I think the golf fan suffers the most. This is, when I think about so many LIV players that I would love to see week in and week out still playing on the PGA Tour, we're at all the major championships. Taylor Gooch had an incredible year on the LIV Golf Tour. We have no idea how well he played. If he would have played the PGA Tour this year, does he win as many times as he did? We'll never know. I do know that Taylor Gooch is playing some dang good golf, but I think what was probably a huge bummer for Taylor is that he didn't play well at all in the majors. So when he was against everybody else, didn't have good weeks. So you're like, how well did he play? But I'm under the impression that, it's the LIV Golf Tour not getting points that's a huge ruling. And I think that's one, if you were a player and somehow that points were going to be given to the LIV Golf Tour, I think there may have been some players that have been like, you know what, let's try to find a way to strike a deal with LIV Golf and join that tour. But now that's definitely a big blow to them. And then I don't think you can rule this out as well. This is Israeli in crisis right now as well. Where is Saudi stand on all of this? And there's been some things that I've read that have been on the other side of the coin as well. So the moral barrier that we talked about as far as Saudi Arabia goes, it's just another thing that these players are going to have to deal with. And they're going to be on that side of it, it sounds like. So there's another part of it. It's like, hey, you're going to go to LIV Golf. It's like, we talked about the sports washing and all the things that these players have had to deal with. And there's no right answer in anything that they can say. And now it's just getting harder and harder for them because this whole crisis that's come up has not made it any easier on them either. So definitely thoughts and prayers for that as well. For those of you that are listening and have an association with it as well. Definitely one that my family and I have been praying about. It sucks. It's not fun, but as it relates to golf, I think it's definitely something you can't avoid when it comes to the LIV Golf players and where they might, a lot of these players probably have different viewpoints than that. And it's like, when you throw a war on top of that, it's like, okay, now things are really getting interesting.
Yeah. I mean, undoubtedly, I think if there's anything we learned in this past week, it's like how insignificant golf is in the grand scheme of life and humanity. And, echo the same sentiments on mine as well there. I mean, I think that it's I mean, for on the golf piece to kind of focus in on that, it's interesting. Kind of to your point, with Taylor Gooch has this amazing year in live events, wins the $18 million for the individual prize, and the guy that finishes third, right, and kind of backdoor to third place finish apparently this last weekend with the win, Brooks Koepka is the guy that really made the best gamble of anyone who went over to LIV, because he's the big game hunter. He's the guy that still had, exemptions into majors through various of different, whether it's OWGR or whether it's, past winter, he gets in these majors, he plays well, and he gets to continue playing in them. And so I think that was I'd say a guy that when he went over, I thought he was in a similar position to Brooks, and just depending on how he played in the majors, was Dustin Johnson, and things just haven't gone as well for him in those events. And now he's kind of on the outside looking in on some of those. So it's gonna be really interesting to see how that goes long term. I was interested if you saw this on Brooks in this last week, because this is so intriguing to me now, as part of, I guess, LIV's efforts to get ranked, right? That they're trying to show this isn't a closed shop. They've instituted relegation. I guess there's some form of play in tournament.
Dude, it was a joke, man. Like,
did you see Chase got relegated?
There was two other guys that are captains that should have gotten relegated. I think Martin Keimer and Lee Westwood should have both been relegated, but they're captains, so they don't get relegated. It's like, what are we doing?
Siwon Kim got relegated so hard. I think I mentioned this. Like, Siwon Kim had maybe the greatest season in the history of professional golf in terms of strokes over par to money made. Truly phenomenal. I'm gonna go back and tabulate it, but I thought it's interesting for a number of reasons. One, so Brooks' brother Chase gets relegated. Two, apparently he had continued to have strong comments about Matthew Wolff, where he's asked about his team. He's like, well, it's just three of us. It's me, Chase, and Jay Kokrak, and basically he's persona non grata to me. So it looks like there going to be some changes coming in the offseason for Team Smash. Let me check my notes here. I think it's Team Smash GC, because Chase is gone. It looks like Matthew's going to get traded. So Brooks and Jay are looking for some fill-ins there. Really, really intrigued to see how that all shakes out. Although at the Ryder Cup, we saw a lot of guys wearing Smash gears. So maybe some of those moves are in the offing.
Yeah, I guess just to kind of put a period and a dot on this LIV Golf. We never really talk about like the LIV Golf Tour and just how we just kind of touch on it, just because anyway I don't watch it. I just kind of look at the results and then to see, it's all just speculating. It's like, oh, maybe they would have great years. We just don't know. But so when Taylor left to go to the LIV Golf Tour, he was one of the more surprising players for me, because I thought he had a chance to play just where he was. He'd already won on the PGA Tour. To me, he was right around top 30 in the world. So he's a guy that had made the jump and could have continued to make the jump into the top 10 in the world based on where I thought his ceiling was, which I thought he could be a top 10 player in the world. Max Homa was right around the same world ranking as Taylor at the same time. So let's say Max Homa went to the LIV Golf Tour and Taylor Gooch stayed. And you know how highly we talk about, or how high of praise we talk about Max Homa now and how good he's been. We could be talking about Taylor Gooch in that same fashion if he would have stayed and if Max Homa would have gone. It's crazy just our perception of, because we watch them, we see them play on the PGA Tour and Max, how many times he's won in big time events. We're able to actually see and compare and know, because there's history to it. And we know the past events, how big of an event this is. We just don't know how big of an event all these wins that Taylor Gooch has racked up. It's just hard for us to put, a general feel for how good his season has been. He's made an absolute buttload of money that when you look back on your career and you're like, you know what? I made $100 million. It's like, if I grew up playing knowing I was going to make $100 million, great, but I just kind of was thinking about that with Max and Taylor, two guys that were really, really close to each other, as far as their world rankings, really close friends. And now the two have continued to play well, but we look at two in different lights just based on where they play.
Yeah, that's such a great connection of two fates, because I think, Taylor got roasted after one of the events, his comments about the Ryder Cup, and in a weird way, I mean, he's a guy that, would have been in contention for all these teams the last couple of years, President's Cup, and probably would have made one of those teams and been on an upward trajectory there. And I absolutely do not mean this in a patronizing way, but I just hope the money was worth it for these guys. And second to that, I hope that the teams advising them laid out what could happen, worst case scenario, in full detail for each of these guys, so they knew the gravity of the decision that they were making when they made it. Because that's what's continued to confuse me, is we hear reports and you never know who the sources are and whose agenda is being driven in some of these reports. But just the guys were blindsided or confused when they weren't considered for, whether it's a Ryder Cup team on the European or American side, or, when they weren't immediately given, consideration for world rankings points. And it just seems incredibly naive to me, is the only word I can really use for that, to not think, okay, probably we're going to be seen as, as a persona non grata, as an organization. So they're going to do everything they can to keep us away from getting these things we need to become legitimate. So I better be really okay with both the money I've been being given up front and my future earning potential. And if I'm okay with that, then great, I'm willing to take on that risk. And in the case of Taylor Gooch, like, he may well come out on ahead on this, and if this whole deal comes through and he can come back into the ecosystem, then fantastic for him. But I just think some of these guys, like, I hope for a guy like Taylor Gooch, just on a human level, that he doesn't look back and say, man, that extra $30 million, I would have traded that for one Ryder Cup appearance, or the chance to play in multiple Masters, or, just any of these legacy things.
He's not in any majors next year.
That's crazy, man.
Not in any majors.
That is crazy.
So that's it's crazy that he's, the year that he's had, that he won't be in any major championships. So it's hard to really say that, this guy should be in majors. He should be playing in the majors. There's no doubt about it, and in my opinion, but we kind of knew this is like what was going to happen. So it's from that standpoint, and to kind of talk about just the money that he has made. I know he's put a lot of money into his foundation. He's a friend of mine too. Like, he's not somebody that I wouldn't trust, wouldn't have a charity component to all the money that he has made. And so he's definitely poured a lot of money into his foundation. So props to him definitely on that as well. Yeah.
Another guy, Harold Varner, did that as well.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I'm not saying this is all bad. I'm definitely not trying to talk down to the LIV guys. I'm saying this more on a human level. Like, I just hope for their sake that they don't live with the regret of, like, man, that actually was really important to me, and I didn't realize I was giving that up when I went and left. But man, we got heavy in this podcast.
I didn't. For coming off a week in Baton Rouge, this is way deeper than I thought I'd ever get, talking about golf on a Sunday night.
Baton Rouge and, like, spinal surgery. I could have really done with a nice light one.
Look at us.
Pain meds and just getting right back into the heavy parts of it. Well, look, I mean, I had some college football picks for the SEC and the ACC. I mean, I don't know if you want. Here's the only pick I want from you is LSU going to cover 30 points at home against Army this weekend?
I think we can kind of just name our score in that one. It's pretty cool to be playing one of the Service Academy teams.
That is awesome.
At home. I think that'll be a real fun week in Baton Rouge. Week off and then play Alabama. So that'll be a big game that'll probably decide the SEC for the most part.
Heels at home this week, 23.5 point favorites against Virginia. That is a trap game. I know a trap game when I see a trap game.
Shut up, dude.
I don't care that Virginia is 1-5.
Shut up, dude.
They're oldest rivalry in the South. They're all trap games until they're not trap games. So I think we're gonna win by like 10. But rivalry game, 24-point line, man. No, I know a trap game when I see one. But I mean, we're rolling though. I feel like if we can just clean up just a few things, I'm ready to book my ticket to the Sugar Bowl. That's all I'm saying.
Okay. Noted.
You heard it here first. Heels are going to the CFP.
All right. I love it.
I feel like that about does it for this week. I'm fired up for our next episode this week. Tell me again the name of the guy you worked with within the Gears program, because this is going to be really cool stuff. If you're a swing nerd, and I assume that most of you are, given the journey that we've gone on this podcast, this is going to be a really, really cool episode to dig into later this week.
Yeah, his name's Michael Neff. Reached out a while back. He's has the Gears program, which is a 3D analysis of your golf swing. He's got a ton of tour models that guys that have swung on it. So he's got a ton of information that he's used to cross-reference based on his data with where guys are on the end of the spectrum as far as just guys that overdo it, underdo it on certain areas of their golf swings. Shows you the numbers, breaks down everything. And for me, it's been cool to see where my swing kind of has fit in it. And he's helped me a little bit out, and I'm excited to talk to him about it.
Love it, man. Full Smylie Kaufman swing breakdown on the way. Be sure you're subscribed to the YouTube for that, because we're going to get visual for large portions of that. Maybe we'll look at, my degrees of head movement and my brace with them get on the gears with my putting. But that's coming up this week. And then some big names the following week. So excited for what we got next. And golly, Smylie, you need departing words for the audience to kind of lighten us up after a bit of a heavy turn.
No, just really excited to sleep. Really excited to sleep tonight. Definitely need some Z's tonight. Coming off a long week. Baton Rouge, it's great, but it's a long way away. Had one too many high noons, on Saturday watching the game. So definitely looking to have a good, clean eating week, workout week, and then do it all over again for the Auburn Ole Miss game next week. So
God bless you, man. I wish I was there with you, but I'm just worried about how many pillows I'm going to prop up underneath myself so I can properly drain with my brace. So appreciate everybody joining us this week, listening, watching, however you're consuming the show. And we will talk to you on Thursday.